Look, let me start with something that almost everyone goes through but rarely talks about honestly. You save your first $10,000 and you expect it to feel like a turning point. Like something in your life should finally change. You imagine relief, confidence, maybe even a sense of freedom. And for a brief moment, it does feel good. You check your account, you feel proud of yourself, and you think, okay, I've made it past the hardest part. But then a strange realization sets in. Nothing actually feels different. Your stress doesn't disappear. Your options don't suddenly expand. Your day-to-day life looks almost exactly the same as it did before. And that's when confusion kicks in. Because $10,000 sounds like a lot. It's a big number. It's something most people struggle to reach. So why doesn't it change anything? My name is Alex, and I spend way too much time thinking about money and why it never seems to work the way people expect it to. If you're someone who has saved money before and still felt stuck, make sure to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you make sense of it. Because today we're talking about why reaching $10,000 feels important, but changes almost nothing at first. Here's the thing, most people don't realize. $10,000 isn't a freedom number, it's a proof number. It proves you can save, it proves you have discipline, it proves you can delay gratification. But proof and power are not the same thing. And that misunderstanding is where a lot of frustration comes from. When you hit $10,000, your brain expects a reward. Psychologically, we associate milestones with relief. We assume that once we cross a certain line, the pressure should ease. But money doesn't work that way. In fact, at this stage, money is still fragile. $10,000 feels big because you remember exactly what it took to build it, but relative to real-life risks, it's still small. Think about it this way. One medical bill, one job disruption, one major car repair, and a meaningful portion of that $10,000 can disappear fast. Your brain knows this, even if you don't consciously think about it. So instead of feeling free, you feel protective. You stop asking, what can this money do for me? And start asking, how do I make sure I don't lose this? And that emotional shift changes everything. This is where it gets really interesting. At lower levels of savings, every dollar feels like progress. But once you reach $10,000, every dollar starts to feel like responsibility. You're no longer just building something, you're guarding it. And guarding something is mentally exhausting, especially when it still isn't enough to change your options in a meaningful way. Now, you might be thinking, so what's the point of saving at all if it doesn't change anything? And that's a fair question, but the answer isn't that $10,000 is useless. It's that people expect it to do a job it was never meant to do. $10,000 doesn't buy freedom. It buys stability, and even that stability is limited. It gives you a buffer, not leverage. It gives you time, not transformation. The problem is that nobody explains this up front, so people hit this milestone expecting a lifestyle shift instead of a structural one. This is also why so many people feel disappointed right after hitting their first big savings goal. They don't feel ahead. They feel like they're in the same system, just with a slightly thicker cushion. Psychologically, that's a letdown. It feels like you climbed a mountain only to realize it was just the first hill. Here's another layer most people miss. At this stage, your fixed costs haven't changed. Your rent is the same. Your bills are the same. Your obligations are the same. So even though your bank balance looks better, your financial structure hasn't actually shifted. And money only starts to feel different when it changes your structure, not just your balance. This is why people often plateau after $10,000. They keep saving the same way, expecting a different feeling. And when it doesn't arrive, motivation fades. Not because they're lazy or bad with money, but because the feedback loop breaks. Effort keeps going in, but emotional reward stops showing up. Here's what most people don't realize. This stage is supposed to feel underwhelming. It's the transition point between survival habits and strategic thinking. Up until now, saving was about discipline. From here on, progress starts depending on design. At this point, the question slowly shifts. It stops being, how can I save more? And becomes, what does this money actually protect me from? and what does it enable? That's a very different question, and most people are never taught to ask it. $10,000 is the point where you stop proving something to yourself and start learning how the system really works. You begin to see how fixed costs, commitments, and income structure matter more than motivation. And that realization can feel uncomfortable because it means effort alone won't carry you forward anymore. This is also why comparing yourself to other people becomes dangerous at this stage. You see someone else with 10,000 saved who looks confident, relaxed, even ahead. But you don't see their structure. You don't see their obligations, their safety net, or their risks. And money without context always lies. Here's the quiet truth. $10,000 doesn't change your life, but it changes your perspective. It shows you that saving is possible, but also reveals how limited saving alone really is. And that's not discouraging, that's information. Once you understand this, the disappointment starts to make sense. You weren't supposed to feel free yet. You were supposed to feel aware. $10,000 is the foundation, not the finish line. And if you're at this stage right now feeling underwhelmed or confused, that doesn't mean you did something wrong. It means you reach the exact point where most people either quit or level up. You've already proven you can save. The next phase is about learning how money actually creates control, not just comfort. That's what we'll talk about next. How money stops being just a buffer and starts becoming leverage. How structure matters more than discipline. And why the people who move past this stage aren't smarter, they just change the game they're playing. If this video helped you understand why your first big milestone felt empty instead of exciting, make sure to like and subscribe. Because once you understand what $10,000 really is, you're finally ready to learn what comes after it.